The rain came down in sheets, turning the city into a blur of wet lights and rushing shadows. People hurried by with umbrellas, taxis splashed through puddles, and neon signs flickered in the mist. In the corner of a narrow alley behind a bakery, a 12-year-old boy sat under a broken awning, hugging his knees and trying to stay dry. His name was Leo. He wore an oversized hoodie and torn sneakers. His dark hair stuck to his forehead, and his hands were raw from the cold. Every day, Leo roamed the streets, collecting empty cans, broken phones, and anything else that looked like it might be worth something. Some days, he helped at a junkyard or washed windows outside restaurants. Other days, he just went hungry. Leo had no home, no family, no one to call his own, or at least, that's what he believed. That evening, when the rain got heavier, Leo left his corner and moved toward the main street. He knew the hotel around the block sometimes tossed out leftover food after fancy dinners. The alley near the kitchen exit was one of his best chances on stormy nights. But as he passed a sleek black car parked at the curb, something caught his eye. A small, shiny object lay in a puddle near the front tire. Leo looked around. No one was watching. He crouched and pulled the object out of the water. It was a wallet. Not just any wallet. This one was thick leather and expensive looking. It had gold trim on the edges and smelled like new shoes. Leo glanced around again. Still no one. Carefully, he opened the wallet. His heart skipped. Cash. A lot of it. Maybe a few $1,000s. He couldn't count that high, but it was more than he'd ever seen. There were also shiny credit cards, a few business cards, and folded receipts from fancy places he could never enter. He flipped to the clear plastic window inside and froze. A photograph sat neatly behind the plastic. A woman, young, beautiful, with long dark hair and gentle eyes. She was smiling, standing on a beach with sunlight in her hair. Her face burned into Leo's mind instantly, not because she was a stranger, because he knew her. It was his mother. His throat tightened. He stared at the picture until the edges blurred. He hadn't seen her in 5 years. Not since the night she vanished without a trace. One moment she was humming while making dinner. The next morning, she was gone. No notes, no messages, just a deep hole in Leo's heart. His fingers trembled as he pulled the photo out and slipped it into his pocket. He closed the wallet and stepped back under the awning, his thoughts racing. Was this really her? Why was her photo inside a rich man's wallet? He turned it over in his hands. One of the business cards inside read, Julian Crestwood, Crestwood Holdings, Executive Office, private access only, no direct number. Leo had heard the name before. Julian Crestwood was on posters, news clips, and headlines about mergers and skyscrapers. They called him the invisible billionaire, rich, untouchable, rarely seen. What was his mother's photo doing in Julian Crestwood's wallet? Leo stared into the rain. For a moment, the world seemed silent, even though cars still moved and people still walked. Nothing made sense. Was his mother alive? Did this man know her? Had she been with him all this time? He couldn't ask the police. They didn't care about street kids. If he returned the wallet, they'd probably take it and throw him out. Worse, they might accuse him of stealing it. But if he kept it, someone might come looking. He'd have to be careful. Leo made a decision. He took one last look at the alley, then ducked into a broken wooden fence behind the bakery, where he had a small place to sleep, a hollow behind stacked crates, dry for now. There, in the dim glow from a nearby window, he opened the wallet again. He pulled out the cards, the receipts, the money. He separated the photo and held it close. His fingers brushed her smile. A flood of memories came back, her voice, her laugh, the way she used to kiss his forehead before bed. He hid the wallet in a torn backpack beneath a crate, carefully wrapping it in an old t-shirt. The photo he kept in the front pocket of his hoodie. That night, Leo didn't sleep much. He kept going over the same questions in his mind. He didn't understand how a man like Julian Crestwood could be connected to his missing mother. But he knew one thing. He had to find him. He had to know the truth. The next morning, the rain had stopped. The city was fresh and muddy, and Leo set out with the wallet hidden and the photo pressed to his chest. His first stop was a local internet cafe. The man who worked there sometimes let Leo use the computer for 10 minutes in exchange for sweeping the floor. Today, Leo offered to sweep the whole front sidewalk. "You need something?" the man asked, eyeing Leo's soaked shoes. Leo nodded. "I want to look someone up." The man shrugged and handed him 10 minutes. "Be quick! Don't click weird stuff." Leo sat at the far computer and typed Julian Crestwood into the search bar. Results exploded across the screen. Articles, news reports, glossy photos of tall glass buildings, but none of them showed the men clearly. Only silhouettes, interviews behind frosted glass, or old black and white photos from board meetings. The man really was invisible. Still, Leo read everything he could. He found out that Crestwood owned multiple companies, hotels, tech firms, luxury transport, even security firms. One article mentioned a penthouse suite on the top floor of the Halgrave Hotel downtown. Private access, helicopter pad, no visitors. Leo wrote it all down on a napkin. The cafe owner tapped the glass. "Time's up, kid." Leo nodded and stepped outside, holding his napkin like a map. He looked toward the skyline, where the Halgrave Hotel stood like a glass needle pointing into the clouds. He would go there. He didn't know how, or what he'd say, or even what he expected to find. But something deep in his chest told him this was right. That maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something bigger than him. He took one last look at the photo in his pocket and whispered, "I'm going to find you, Mom." Then he walked into the city, past busy streets and strangers who didn't see him, toward the tower that held the answers and the man who held her picture. Crestwood Tower was like something out of a different world. It rose high above the city like a blade of glass, sharp and silver against the sky. Leo stood across the street, staring up at it, his heart pounding. He'd never been this close to something so clean, so guarded, so completely out of reach. People in suits walked in and out of the tall revolving doors. A doorman in a black uniform opened taxis for guests. The place had cameras, a marble lobby, and the kind of silence that made street kids like Leo invisible. But Leo wasn't leaving. Not without answers. He had a plan. Not a great one, but it was the only thing he could think of. He'd watched the building for hours and noticed delivery trucks came every morning. Food, flowers, office supplies. The workers rarely stayed long, and they always wore black hats and carried boxes. So Leo found one behind a nearby building. He spotted a delivery van unloading lunch trays. When no one was looking, he grabbed a discarded black hat from the back, stuffed a towel into his arms to look like a wrapped box, and walked toward the service entrance with his chin up and his heartbeat roaring in his ears. "Delivery," he muttered to the guard without making eye contact. The guard barely glanced at him, more focused on a phone call. He waved Leo through. The elevator smelled like lemon polish. Leo pressed a button for the top floor, then held his breath as the light blinked red. "Access denied." Just as panic crept in, a man in a blue suit walked in, swiped a shiny card, and pressed the same button. Leo stood still, pretending to read the towel in his arms. The elevator began to rise. The higher it went, the more nervous Leo became. When the doors opened on the top floor, the man in the suit walked out without noticing him. Leo followed. The hallway was silent. Soft carpets, paintings on the walls. It smelled like flowers and money. At the far end, a glass door with gold letters read, "Julian Crestwood Private Office." Leo's legs moved before his brain could stop them. He opened the door and stepped inside. The office was huge. All windows. You could see the whole city from up there. A long table with glowing screens, shelves filled with books and awards, and at the center behind a black desk sat a man in a gray suit. He was older than Leo expected. Early 40s, maybe. Sharp face, dark hair, perfectly still. Julian Crestwood. He looked up from his screen, confused for just a second before narrowing his eyes. "Who are you?" he asked, voice cool and smooth like ice water. Leo froze. The fake delivery towel trembled in his arms. I found this," Leo said, stepping forward. He reached into his hoodie and pulled out the luxury wallet. It was outside. "By your car. I thought I should return it. Julian stood slowly. He didn't look panicked. He didn't smile either. He walked around the desk and took the wallet from Leo's hand. He opened it, checked the cards, the cash, everything was still there. He didn't say thank you. Leo's eyes burned as he saw the wallet in Julian's hands again. The photo wasn't in it anymore. He had it in his own pocket, but he couldn't stop himself. Why do you have a photo of my mom? The words burst out of him. Julian's hand stilled. His expression changed not much, just a flicker, but Leo saw it. A pause, a tightening of the jaw. Then it was gone. I don't know what you're talking about, Julian said flatly. Yes, you do, Leo said, stepping closer. The photo, the one in here. He pointed to the wallet. That's my mom. She's been gone 5 years. You had her picture. That means you knew her. Julian's eyes darkened. Security, he said calmly, pressing a small button on the side of his desk. Leo's heart sank. 2 guards entered within seconds. Tall, stiff, professional. Remove him, Julian said. No. Please, just tell me, do you know her? Please, Leo yelled, struggling as the guards grabbed his arms. Julian turned away, facing the window. She is not your concern. Leo's voice cracked. She's my mom. But the doors slammed shut behind him before he could say another word. The guards marched him to the service elevator, silent and cold. They didn't hurt him, but they made it very clear he wasn't coming back. By the time he was back on the street, Leo felt like the city had turned its back on him too. He walked without direction, the sky gray above him, his chest aching. His last bit of hope. This place had crushed him. Julian Crestwood knew something. Leo was sure of it, but he'd thrown him out like trash. He sat on a bench near a bus stop, head down, hands stuffed into his hoodie. The photo was still there. His mom's eyes still smiled at him. Why would a man like that lie? Why pretend? Unless he was hiding something. Leo looked up, anger building inside him like heat. He'd faced the streets for 5 years, slept under bridges, fought for food, stayed alive without anyone. He wasn't giving up now. Meanwhile, up in the glass tower, Julian Crestwood stood silently at his window, staring at the city far below. The boy's voice echoed in his head. The photo, the word mom. He walked back to his desk slowly, pulled out his phone, and pressed a contact. Elizabeth, he said to his assistant on the other end. I need you to find everything you can about the kid who just came into my office. There was a pause. Did he steal something? No, Julian said quietly. Just find out where he came from, where he sleeps, who he talks to, everything. And then, Julian looked down at the wallet in his hand, the empty space where the photo had been. Then tell me if he's telling the truth. He hung up, walked to a shelf, and opened a small locked box. Inside were more photos, all of the same woman, Leo's mother. Julian stared at them for a long time, his expression unreadable. Outside, the sky began to darken again, and far below, a boy who had nothing but a photo and a name swore to himself he would find the truth no matter how long it took, or how powerful the man keeping secrets was. Leo didn't stop going back. Every day, after roaming the streets or sneaking into public schools for warmth and free meals, he made his way back to Crestwood Tower. He never tried going inside again. The guards would recognize him, but he watched. From benches, alleys, bus stops. He studied every car that came and went, especially the black one. Julian Crestwood's single quotes S.it was always the same: sleek, silent, tinted windows, always with a driver. It came and went at strange hours, sometimes in the middle of the night, sometimes early in the morning. Leo kept track of it in a crumpled notebook he stole from a gas station. He wrote down the times, the license plate, the direction it went. He didn't know what he was looking for, only that if he stayed close, something might lead him to the truth. Leo had taken to sleeping nearby under the covered stairs of a parking structure across the street. It was loud and cold, but he had a line of sight to the tower's back entrance. Every night before sleeping, he'd take out the photo of his mother and whisper the same thing. I'm coming for you. Just wait. One night, the city air was thick with fog. Traffic had slowed, and fewer people walked the streets. Leo sat huddled in his hoodie, watching the tower windows light up, one by one, like eyes blinking in the mist. That's when he felt it. Someone was watching him. He turned, sharply, but the alley behind him was empty. Still, something inside him tensed. He stood, squinting into the fog, and then he saw her. A woman in a dark coat, standing a few feet away. She wasn't there a second ago. Her hood was up, but wisps of black hair spilled out. Her face was pale, beautiful, and unreadable. She wasn't like the people who passed by. She wasn't hurrying. She was still, focused. Watching him, Leo stepped back. "Who are you?" he asked. "You shouldn't be here," she said softly. Her voice was calm, but it carried weight. Almost like she wasn't talking to a kid, like she was warning him. Like she knew exactly what he was doing. "I'm not doing anything," Leo said quickly. "I'm just sitting. You're following him," she replied. Leo's breath caught. "You don't know what he is," the woman said. "Julian Crestwood is not the man you think he is." Leo stared at her. "You know him?" She didn't answer. Instead, she stepped forward and handed him something. A folded note. Before Leo could speak again, a horn blared down the street. Leo looked over his shoulder. Just a taxi passing by. But when he turned back, the woman was gone, completely vanished. The street was empty again. His fingers trembled as he unfolded the note. It was short. Just one sentence, handwritten in neat, slanted letters. "Ask Julian about Eleanor, then watch his face." Leo read it again. Then again. His brain spun. Eleanor. He didn't know anyone by that name. Was it a place? A person? Someone from Julian's past? He sat down slowly, still staring at the note, the woman's warning echoing in his head. "You don't know what he is." He pressed the paper flat in his notebook, then looked up at the glowing tower across the street. His jaw tightened. She was right. He didn't know who Julian Crestwood really was, but he was going to find out. The next morning, Leo began asking questions. He asked doormen, street vendors, even the coffee guy at the corner cart near Crestwood Tower. They knew Julian's name, but not much else. No one had ever seen him enter through the front door. No one had ever delivered anything to his penthouse directly. He was a ghost even in the building he owned. But Leo kept searching. Days passed. He watched, waited, recorded everything in his notebook. Each time the black car appeared, he followed on foot, by bus, sometimes on the back of delivery bikes when he could sneak a ride. He followed it to meetings, private gates, even to the top of a cliffside road near the harbor, where it stopped for 20 minutes before disappearing again. Julian never got out. At least not where Leo could see, but he never forgot the note. Eleanor. He said the name out loud sometimes, testing it. It didn't sound familiar, but the idea that it could rattle Julian Crestwood, that it meant something burned inside him. One night, as he lay beneath the parking stairs again, curled up in a blanket made from old coats, Leo dreamed of his mother. She stood by the ocean in a white dress, calling his name. When he ran toward her, Julian stepped between them, silent and blocking the way. And behind Julian, someone else stood in the shadows, a woman with the same black hair and pale skin as the one who'd warned him. He woke up sweating. His heart thudded. He sat up and opened his notebook, flipping to the back page. In bold letters, he wrote, "Who is Eleanor?" He underlined it 3 times. The fog outside had returned, thicker than ever. As Leo looked across the street to the tower, he realized something had changed. He wasn't just chasing answers anymore. He was chasing secrets, and some of those secrets might not want to be found. It took Leo 2 days to figure out how to break in. Crestwood Tower had cameras, guards, and a security system built to keep out anyone who didn't belong. But Leo didn't care anymore. He wasn't going to wait. Not when answers were so close, just 60 stories above the streets that had chewed him up and spat him out for years. The elevator was out of the question, but the construction scaffolding across the neighboring building reached dangerously close to the tower's upper floors. Leo had studied it for days. If he timed it right and climbed at night when the city slept, he might reach a balcony. Might. The wind was vicious that night. It tore at his clothes, pulling and whipping around him as he climbed, his fingers raw and aching. He didn't look down. He couldn't. His breath came in sharp bursts. One wrong move, and he wouldn't get any answers, only a funeral with no one to attend. When he reached the ledge, he was shaking. But he made it. Julian's penthouse loomed before him, dark and silent. The balcony doors were locked, but Leo found a vent small enough for someone his size to crawl through. After 15 painful minutes of squeezing and bruising every rib in his body, he dropped into a library. He landed hard on the carpet, rolled and held his breath. In alarm, he stood slowly. The penthouse was unlike anything Leo had ever seen. Tall glass walls, soft golden lights, and floors that seemed to shine under his feet. There were sculptures and books, velvet furniture, and a fireplace that still glowed faintly, and in the far corner paintings, dozens of them. Leaning against the walls, he crept toward them. The brushstrokes were bold, emotional. They told stories, without words. One painting showed a stormy sea, another, a woman crying in a red scarf, and then he saw her. A painting of a woman with dark hair and soft eyes. She looked just like the photo he carried. His mother, the signature on the bottom. Read, Eleanor. His heart thudded. Behind the easel, another canvas sat alone, covered in dust, but framed carefully. He wiped it clean with his sleeve. It was a painting of a baby, a small boy, wrapped in a blue blanket, with wild dark curls and curious eyes. His breath caught. It was him. The shape of the face, the tilt of the head, even the dimple on the left cheek. He had seen it in a broken mirror 1,000 times. What are you doing in here? The voice cut through the silence like glass. Leo spun around. Julian Crestwood stood by the hallway, barefoot, wearing a black robe, a glass of water in his hand. He didn't look shocked. He didn't shout. His eyes were cold and alert. Leo's throat went dry. I had to come back. I had to know. Julian said nothing for a moment. He walked slowly toward the window and set the glass down on a table. I should have had better locks, he muttered. Leo gathered his courage. His voice came out quiet but firm. I know about Eleanor. Julian froze, then turned. There was no mask this time. No calm businessman voice. No cold dismissal. For the first time since Leo had met him, Julian Crestwood looked human. He stared at the boy for a long time, then motioned to the couch. Sit, he said. Leo sat. Julian walked to the fireplace, tapped a button, and the flames flickered to life. He sat across from Leo, elbows on his knees, hands folded. I loved her, Julian said. His voice was distant, soft. She was an artist, wild, brave, smarter than anyone I've ever known. She never cared about money or power. She painted because it was the only way she could breathe. And for some reason I'll never understand, she loved me back. Leo listened, wide-eyed, frozen in place. I met her when I was still building my first company, Julian continued. She hated what I stood for, said the world didn't need more billionaires, it needed more dreamers. But still, we were drawn to each other. He leaned back slightly. Then, one day, she was gone. No note, no call, nothing. Just disappeared. Leo swallowed. You never tried to find her? I tried everything, Julian said quietly. Private investigators, her friends, her old art professors. No one knew. Or maybe they did. And they were protecting her. But I couldn't reach her. He stood and walked over to the painting of the baby. She left this behind. No name, no message, just a painting. He turned back to Leo. For years I thought she left because of me, because I was too controlling, too focused on building my empire. But when you showed up and said she was your mother, Julian's voice trailed off. He walked closer, looking Leo in the eye. How old are you? 12. Leo replied. Julian nodded slowly. She left 13 years ago. Leo blinked. You think I'm Julian didn't answer. He didn't have to. Leo's chest tightened. The idea had never crossed his mind, not really. He didn't know his father. His mother never spoke about him. All she ever said was, he's far away. And you're better off not knowing. Julian sat back down. If it's true, he said, It changes everything. Leo's voice cracked. Then why did you throw me out before? Julian didn't flinch. Because I was afraid. He looked away, as if ashamed. I've spent years building walls around myself. Power, money, distance. I never thought I'd see a piece of Eleanor again. And then you barged in with that photo, looking like her, demanding answers. It shook me. They sat in silence. Then Julian reached for something in his coat, a small black box. He opened it. Inside was a necklace, a silver pendant, shaped like a paintbrush. She gave me this the night before she vanished, he said. Said it was her heart. He held it out to Leo. I think it belongs to you now. Leo didn't take it. Not yet. Too many questions swirled in his head. If you really loved her, he said slowly, then help me find her. Julian met his eyes. You think she's still alive? Leo nodded. I feel it. Julian closed the box and set it on the table between them. Then we'll find her. The next morning, the city sky was pale and overcast. But inside Julian's car, everything was still and quiet. Leo sat in the back seat, staring out the window, clutching the silver pendant Julian had given him. It felt heavy, like it carried stories too big for a 12-year-old boy to understand. Julian didn't speak much on the drive. He seemed changed, quieter, slower. Leo could tell the man was thinking about 1,000 things at once. We're almost there, Julian finally said. Where? Leo asked. Julian glanced at him. An old gallery. Eleanor's. Leo's eyes widened. It was hidden in the older part of the city, tucked between brick buildings that leaned from age. A faded wooden sign still hung crooked above the door. Gallery. Loon. Most of the windows were boarded up, but Leo could see the outline of what once was a beautiful front room, filled with light and canvases. Julian used an old key. The lock protested, but gave way with a loud click. The door creaked open, letting in the smell of dust, oil paint, and time. They stepped inside together. Sunlight filtered through cracks in the wood, landing softly on forgotten canvases, broken easels, and a trail of dead leaves. Paintings lined the walls, some faded, others vibrant. Eleanor's brushstrokes were everywhere. Leo walked slowly through the space, touching the dusty edge of a canvas. It showed a woman holding a baby in front of a burning house. She painted her fears. Julian murmured behind him. Leo didn't answer. He was drawn to the back of the gallery, to a painting half covered by a torn sheet. He pulled the cloth away. Behind it was a portrait of Julian, but not the cold, powerful man Leo knew. This Julian looked younger, softer, human. She loved you, Leo whispered. Julian stood silent for a long time. Then he said, she used to call this gallery her sanctuary. Said it was the only place she felt safe. They explored the back rooms, stepping over broken floorboards and peeling wallpaper. In the farthest room, once an office, Leo noticed something odd. The wall near the bookshelf had a faint line in the paint, a small square that didn't match. He pressed on it. A quiet click. A hidden panel popped open. Inside, wrapped in a stained cloth, was a journal. Julian stepped closer. What is it? Leo opened the cover carefully. The pages were yellowed, the handwriting neat but urgent. It was Eleanor's. They sat down on the dusty floor, side by side, and read. If you're reading this, I'm probably already gone. I didn't want to leave Julian. I loved him, but I couldn't trust the people around him, especially his father. That man is a monster behind a golden smile. He offered me money to disappear. I said no. The next day, someone followed me. I don't know what they wanted, but I know what Julian's father wanted. Control. And if he ever knew I was pregnant, he would have taken my child and raised him in the Crestwood image. Julian's hand trembled slightly. Leo kept reading. I watched Julian change under his father's shadow. He didn't even see it. He trusted the wrong people. I had to protect my son, so I left. It broke me, but I couldn't risk it. Julian looked pale. She left to protect you, Leo said softly. She thought I was like him, Julian whispered. Like my father. There was more. I told myself I would return once the danger passed. But danger followed me. I moved city to city, changed names. I never stayed in one place long enough to breathe. I painted whenever I could, but I stopped signing my name. Julian closed the journal. His jaw clenched. I never knew, he said. You didn't look hard enough, Leo said, not unkindly. Julian didn't argue. They left the gallery as the sun began to break through the clouds. Julian held the journal like it was a fragile treasure. Leo kept glancing back at the building until it vanished behind other blocks. Back in the car, Julian tapped his phone. I need something verified, he said to someone on the line. Quietly, DNA test. I'll send the samples tonight. He hung up. Leo raised an eyebrow. You think I'm your son? I have to be sure, Julian replied. For both of us. They sat in silence for a moment. Do you think she's still alive? Leo asked. Julian didn't answer at first. I want to believe that, he said. But if she was still painting, someone would have found her. She's smart, Leo said. She doesn't want to be found. Not unless it's safe, Julian nodded. That's what scares me the most, he said. Julian stood at the edge of the rooftop, the city lights flickering beneath him like stars trapped in concrete. His phone buzzed in his coat pocket. He already knew what it was. The DNA results had arrived. He had asked for them to be delivered directly to him. No assistants, no lawyers, no press. He took the envelope out slowly, his fingers tight with nerves. For a man used to handling billion-dollar deals and standing before boardrooms of predators, this moment shook him to the core. He tore the flap open. Inside, a single page. He read it once, then again. Probability of paternity 99. 9999. His knees nearly gave out. Leo was his son. The silence on the rooftop was thick. The sounds of traffic and wind seemed far away. Julian sat on the cold stone bench nearby, gripping the paper in both hands. Eleanor hadn't lied. All those years while he was building towers, acquiring companies, winning awards, his son had been sleeping in alleys, eating out of bins, growing up without a name, without protection, without knowing who he truly was. Julian closed his eyes. Then he stood, folded the paper carefully, and made a call. Leo sat near the back wall of the old church basement. The shelter was always crowded this time of night. Kids mostly, some even younger than him, some high, some sick, some just trying to disappear. Leo stayed close to the wall, arms folded, the silver pendant still tied around his neck beneath his hoodie. He saw the car before it even parked. Long, black, expensive. Leo cursed under his breath. Julian stepped out alone. No guards, no coat, just a plain shirt, dark pants, and something new in his eyes: hesitation. Leo didn't move. Julian entered slowly, looking around at the cots and peeling walls. He spotted Leo instantly. Can we talk? He asked. Already did, Leo muttered. Julian sighed. You're my son. Maybe on paper. That's not fair. No, Leo said, standing up. What's not fair is me living in shelters and digging through dumpsters while you were sleeping on silk sheets. Julian looked down. I didn't know, he said quietly. You didn't look. Julian said nothing. People were watching now. The shelter's director, a kind older woman named Miss Althea, walked over slowly, hands folded in front of her. Mr. Crestwood? She said, cautious. Can I help you with something? Julian turned to her and said something Leo didn't catch. She nodded and led him away. Leo sat back down. But that wasn't the end of it. The next morning, Julian returned, not in a suit, not in a car, just him, in jeans and a sweater, holding 2 crates of canned food and winter socks. He spent the entire day stacking supplies, handing out warm meals, and helping the shelter repair a broken heater in the basement. The day after, he was back again with books, blankets, and a plumber to fix the bathroom that had been leaking. For weeks, he never once talked about money. He didn't talk about Leo either. He just worked. Some of the other kids were impressed. Some laughed. Yo, that rich guy really trying to be one of us now? They joked. But even they stopped laughing when he came back a third day, this time sitting with a boy who hadn't spoken in days, just to help him finish a puzzle. Leo watched from a distance. He didn't understand it, Why would a man like Julian Crestwood keep coming back to a place like this? And then came the night it rained, the roof leaked badly in one corner, and the staff were overwhelmed. Miss Althea called for volunteers to help move the younger children to the drier half of the room. Julian was already moving cots before she finished her sentence. Leo watched him lift a sleeping toddler gently and carry her to a dry blanket in the corner. He did it like he had done it 1,000 times before, like a father. That night, Leo sat beside Julian for the first time without speaking. They watched a storm together through the cracked basement window. Raindrops streaked the glass in crooked lines. Julian broke the silence first. "You don't have to forgive me," he said. Leo said nothing. "I failed you. I failed your mother. I built a life on concrete and steel, thinking it would protect the people I loved, but it didn't. It pushed them away." Leo kept his eyes on the rain. "I never wanted this world for you," Julian said. "But now I just want to know you, even if that's all I get." Leo finally turned. "You think it's that easy?" he asked, his voice low. "To just show up, hand out soup, and expect me to trust you?" "No," Julian said. "I don't expect anything." He reached into his coat and pulled out something wrapped in cloth. Leo unwrapped it. It was one of Eleanor's small sketchbooks, faded, with smudged pages and loose binding. "She made this when she was pregnant with you," Julian said. "I found it last night in one of the gallery boxes." Leo flipped through the drawings, a baby curled in the womb, a little hand reaching upward, a broken heart stitched back together. The final page was a sketch of a man holding a child's hand as they walked toward a bright horizon. Leo stared at it. "She loved you so much," Julian whispered. Leo swallowed. His voice cracked when he finally asked, "Why didn't she come back?" Julian shook his head. "I don't know, but I'm going to find out. And if she's out there, we'll bring her home." Leo didn't answer, but that night, for the first time, he didn't sleep in the farthest cot. He moved his blanket closer to where Julian sat, leaned against the wall, and closed his eyes. He didn't say a word, but Julian understood. It was a beginning. The gates of the Crestwood estate stood tall, black iron wrapped in vines, guarding a world Leo had only seen from far away. The long driveway curved like a river of stone, lined with trees that whispered in the wind. Julian stood just beyond the gates, waiting. Leo took a deep breath. In his pocket, the old photograph of his mother felt warm from his hand, worn from the months he had carried it. He looked at it once more, her gentle smile, the soft light in her eyes, and then he stepped forward. The gates opened. Julian didn't speak. He simply nodded, calm but clearly emotional. Leo gave a half smile, the kind that still took effort, but came more naturally now. They walked together toward the house. It was massive stone and glass, with wide windows and sharp edges softened by ivy. But it didn't feel cold anymore. Not to Leo. Inside, the rooms were bright and quiet. Staff moved through the halls respectfully, but Leo noticed something different. Julian had changed the place. The sharp paintings were gone, replaced by color and warmth. Some of Eleanor's old artwork now hung in the halls. Julian led Leo into a large room with a tall fireplace, leather couches, and large windows that looked out on a garden. Leo stood still, a fireplace mantel stretched across the far wall. On it sat framed photos. Julian as a child, Julian with his late mother, a few with business leaders, and now a brand new picture. It showed Julian and Leo standing side by side on the shelter's rooftop, smiling. It hadn't been taken that long ago. The sunlight in that picture was real. The smile in Leo's eyes was real too. Leo stepped forward. He reached into his pocket, pulled out the old photograph of Eleanor, and placed it gently beside the new photo. Julian stepped up next to him. "She belongs here," Leo said. Julian nodded. "She always did." They stood there for a long time. The months leading to this day had been full of slow, quiet changes. Julian started showing up at Leo's school not in suits, but in sweatshirts and jeans, sometimes bringing coffee and sandwiches, other times just to listen. He helped Miss Althea secure permanent funding for the shelter and even started a foundation in Eleanor's name, focused on helping at-risk youth and single mothers. Leo kept visiting the gallery, now restored and open again. It had been renamed the Eleanor Project and showcased art from survivors, street kids, and those with no voice. One of Leo's own sketches had been framed and hung near the entrance. Julian had framed it himself. Their relationship didn't turn perfect overnight. There were arguments about trust, about space, about things neither of them fully understood. But they always came back to the table, sat down, and talked. They learned how to be father and son together. Julian no longer tried to buy Leo's affection. He listened instead. He told stories of Eleanor, shared quiet regrets, and even admitted the fears he'd carried since the DNA test came back. "I was terrified I wouldn't be enough for you," he once told Leo. "You weren't." Leo had replied honestly, "But you're trying. That counts." They both laughed at that. At the estate, the sun was beginning to set. Leo explored room by room, discovering places he'd never imagined: an old greenhouse filled with orchids, a library that smelled like time, a piano room where Eleanor had once played before disappearing from Julian's life. Julian showed him a guest room, but this time, it wasn't temporary. "This is yours," Julian said. "You can change it however you want, or pick another one, or none of them. Just know that it's your home now." Leo nodded. That night, they had dinner together in the kitchen instead of the formal dining room. Just the two of them, pasta and garlic bread, and a quiet playlist humming in the background. After the dishes were cleared, they sat outside under the stars. Julian pointed to a faint constellation. "Eleanor used to call that one the Lion. She said he guarded the sky." Leo looked up. "I like that," he said. Then he reached into his hoodie and touched a silver pendant. "I think she's still watching," he said. Julian's voice was soft. "So do I." Later, back inside, Leo stood alone in the living room. He walked to the mantel again. This time, he didn't just stare at the photos. He reached out, gently placed his fingers on the picture of his mother, and whispered, "We're okay now, Mom." The words came quietly but full of meaning. The boy who once slept in alleys was now standing in a home filled with light, memories, and the slow repair of a broken family. Julian stood in the doorway behind him, silent, giving him space. Outside, the wind blew softly through the trees. Inside, the fire crackled gently, warming the air between two generations finally connected, not by money, not by blood alone, but by the choice to begin again. And the photo of Eleanor stayed on the mantel, no longer a question, no longer a wound, but a part of a story that had found its way home.